the bottom of the screen there, or to put that right in the GoToWebinar IM window, chat window. And so as we go through this, we'll be collecting questions, and we will answer them later on in the call. So thank you once again for joining. Today we have 4 presenters, or 4 participants on the Siteport side. They are myself. I'm the second one there from the left, Vicki Becker-Marque. I'm the product manager. And I help customers of Siteport get started and get off on the right track. We have Alexandra Barcelona. She's our moderator today. She'll be gathering those questions and making sure we get through the call properly and then answering those later. Christian Byrne, he's in charge of product development and one of the original authors of Siteport. And Alyssa Murphy, who is the regional sales manager from Sitecore. And we are very thankful to have Alyssa with us today. She's worked for Sitecore, obviously, and has done extensive selling and initiating of the product with many Siteport customers, and has really a good understanding of the challenges behind content migration. So I'm going to hand off to Alyssa. She's going to talk a little bit and tell you a little bit about what I just mentioned, and then she's going to hand it back to me, and then we'll keep going. Alyssa?
Thanks, Vicki. I will extend a thank you for joining us today. As Vicki mentioned, I'm a regional sales manager with Sitecore, and in my role, I work with both the Sitecore partners as well as prospective customers as they're going through their evaluation process of a new CMS. And many of these customers, some of them don't have anything already in place, but most of them are coming off of something. They're coming off of some type of a legacy system or a system that they've just outgrown. And in the last, I would say 6 to 9 months, these are conversations I've had with the Siteport team as well as other partners. You know, one of the frustrating scenarios that we've come across is projects are just really starting to stall. And we move forward really pretty rapidly because there's a need and there's some frustration on the client's part. But then it just kind of hits a wall. And then as I speak with some of these customers, the reason I'm hearing one of them is there's just this uncertainty around content conversion. They have a lot of content, obviously, on their site, and it's very important to them, obviously, and it's a very important part of an implementation. And a lot of questions start to get asked. It begins to get very complex. It adds this whole level of complexity to the project and often derails it or causes it to stall. You know, questions of, can it be done? How long will it take to convert my content? And then the big question of how much will it cost, which is always just a big, you know, X factor, I think, in a lot of the roles and a lot of the deals that we talk to clients about. You know, and if we can be successful in removing this uncertainty, there's a better chance of moving forward with the project, keeping it on track, which is good for everyone, especially when Sitecore, you know, is presented and really is, and you'll see today with the tool, is a safe choice when it comes to content conversion when you're utilizing the Siteport tool. So today you're going to hear a lot about this tool. It's allowing Sitecore partners and customers to remove that uncertainty that surrounds the content conversion. Just creates this nice comfort level that keeps projects on track. And at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want happy customers with happy implementations. And when we can bring this comfort level to everyone up front, the projects just move forward, like I said, which is good for everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and hand this back over to the Siteport team, and they're going to begin to tell you about some of the functionality that this tool can bring you to help you convert your data over to Sitecore. Vicki?
Thanks, Alyssa. Yep, thank you. So what is Siteport? Siteport is an automated content migration tool. It's built on a connector-based architecture. And what that means is that Siteport plugs into your current target API and your source API to move content, users, groups, metadata, modules, workflow, and templates. So how is it different? Well, automated content migration has been around for a long time. I'm sure none of you are surprised to, you've heard terms like we've scripted some migration, we've done some screen scraping, and all of those things are still, relevant and still used. And then there's also manual migration. So migration is not a new topic, but as Alyssa mentioned, it is an increasingly difficult topic with the challenges of the different types of content within a CMS. So screen scraping alone and script-based migration and manual migration really get you part of the way there, or not very far along, but they really leave you with a lot of issues, such as you have to reconstruct your templates. Or once you get everything migrated, I say everything loosely, you have a lot of manual editor rework. And ultimately, it's a very time-intensive process, and the results are low quality. So Siteport really makes this process a lot easier without a lot of additional effort by your team. Things like your internal pages will be relinked, images remain embedded in rich text fields, and components such as right rel modules keep their positions. And again, this is without a lot of additional work from your team. So it sounds a little bit too good to be true, perhaps, but I'm going to tell you about 3 scenarios where we see Siteport used commonly, and then after I'm done, we're going to launch into a demo with Christian, and he's going to show you just how simple it is. So when to use Siteport? There are 3 scenarios, as I mentioned. One is a platform migration. So this is when you have your current content and project in an old CMS, like a legacy CMS. And you need to get out of that CMS, and perhaps you're moving to Sitecore, and perhaps it's a different CMS. But in this case, let's talk about Sitecore. Siteport makes it really easy just moving that content, the whole site content, from one CMS to another. So it migrates everything, including your templates, your workflows, and your modules, as mentioned before. Another area of, that we see typically is in a redesign. So in this case, you may want to not only migrate your site to a new CMS, such as Sitecore, you may want to redesign it as well. And so you would go through your typical upfront process of redesigning the site visually, UX, that type of thing, and you would then have new templates that need to be built. So you would build your new templates in Sitecore, and then you would use Siteport to target and map those new pieces of content into the new template. So you would map, again, your content, your workflow, that type of thing, into your new template. And the final scenario that we see commonly is a refactor. So maybe you were in Sitecore, an older version, or maybe you're in a different CMS, but you need to now refactor your site because maybe you figured out that your templates need to be refreshed so that they're DMS ready, or that there's just some things that maybe were done an old way or not so well that you would like to rework. In this case, Siteport is perfect for that as well. You can migrate, while you're migrating, you can make some of those changes, maybe in tree structure, maybe in refactoring or adding and amending or reorchestrating your templates so that once they're migrated to a newer version, they are ready to be used for DMS. Those are basically the 3 scenarios that we see. And Christian, now I'm going to hand off to him so he can do a demonstration of Siteport, and he's going to focus on some of these things we just talked about in the 3 scenarios. So Christian, would you like to go ahead now?
Sure. Thanks, Vicki. So hi, everyone. I wanted to just show a pretty basic use case for you today so you get an understanding of how Siteport works and how it can help, and maybe you can extrapolate from there how it can be useful in your scenario. So I'm not going to show all the features of the software. I'm just going to show something that's really specific just to give you an idea of how the product works, and you can see more of the features at our YouTube channel. We'll publish that URL at the end of the project, at the end of the webinar today, and also at our website you can see more of the features and screenshots. So what you're looking at in front of you right now is the Siteport login screen. As you can see, it's a web application. It installs with a regular MFI installer and some configuration on top of that to be able to connect your connectors up to the source and the target CMS. It doesn't have to be installed on either the source or the target server. The connectors connect to the source and the target CMS through web services, so all it needs is network connectivity. We have customers who have run this over a VPN. Like if you're a Sitecore partner, you could run it in your own environment and connect it remotely to your customer environment. It really just needs a Windows server to run on and network connectivity ports opened up to be able to connect to the source and the target. So I'm going to log in here quickly. This is just the login screen for the Siteport product. And when you log in, you come to this initial screen that tells you there's no migrations created. So what you need to do when you use the Siteport software is you need to create a migration, which is a combination of source and target CMSs that you're connecting to, plus all of a definition of all the content that you want to migrate. So in this case, I'm going to create a migration, and then go to the migration details and see the source and the target. I'm actually experiencing a laptop malfunction at the moment.
Well, while we're waiting for Christian to get his laptop working again, we did have a question about if the webinar will be made available later. We are recording and we will be putting this up and providing you the URL later so that you can review the webinar again after.
Okay, so I think I'm back. All right, so sorry about that. That was a laptop display driver issue. So as you can see, I'm looking at the Siteport dashboard, and here is where it's telling me I can define the source and the target CMS that I should connect to. And here is where the connectors are defined. The source and the target connectors are defined. In this demonstration today, I just have two connectors set up. I just have the Open Text Management Server connector as well as the Sitecore connector. But if you had the other connectors that Siteport has available, an Electron or Episerver or Drupal or WordPress or a file server or file system connector or the database server connector, those would show up in this drop-down list as well. So I'm going to show you quickly the Sitecore environment that we're going to be running this demonstration to. Here I am logged into Sitecore. And I just wanted to give you a basic overview of this Sitecore environment. It's a really plain vanilla installation of Sitecore. It has just the common, the default installed layouts and templates inside of it. Plus it has an additional template that I created that we'll be using later called New Simple Template. And that New Simple Template just has a handful of fields defined. And let me see, over here in the source CMS is going to be our Red Dot server. So let me get logged into that one. And while that's logging in, I'm going to come over here and set up the source server inside of Siteport. So you can see that I'm connecting to Siteport. This login that Siteport is prompting me for is basically the login that Siteport will connect through the API with. This is the credentials that are required so that Siteport can plug into the source CMS and retrieve all of the content from the source CMS. So right now, Siteport is logging into the same source CMS that we've got over here. This is your Open Text Website Management Server. This is one of the many web content management systems out there that we just are using for this one project. I'm sorry, for this one demo. And you can see the list of projects that show up here are similar to the list of projects that you see inside of Siteport as well when you're trying to connect to the project in Siteport. So the next thing I need to do is connect a target to Siteport. So in this case, the target is going to be Sitecore. And I've got just one server set up for Sitecore, or two servers set up for Sitecore. And you can set up multiple servers with Siteport. It's useful if you're when you're doing an actual migration, so that you can move things from one environment to the other, or do tests of one section of content in one server, and then before you do it in another server. So this is the Siteport environment that we pointed to, that I showed you before, this blank one here. So the first thing I'm going to do is set up a template migration to show you. So if I click on the template tab down here, what Siteport just did was it used the login to connect to the source CMS, which is this OpenText red dot server over here, and retrieve all of the templates. I'm being told that my screen is frozen, so I'm just turning on and off my screen share.
So while Christian's getting his screen to pop up again, sorry about that, we do have a couple more questions. And one of them is about the full list of connectors that Siteport supports. We do have other connectors besides Sitecore. Obviously, for this demo, you can also see it's OpenText. We have Episerver, Drupal, Ektron. We have an XML connector, a database connector, WordPress. We do have a couple that are also on the roadmap. One of them is SharePoint. And we do build new connectors all the time. So if one that you're looking for isn't listed, we do create new ones all the time. So we can definitely work with you to do that if yours isn't listed, or if there's a specific one that you think there would be a big need for. Just let us know, and we'll definitely be happy to talk to you about that.
Hi, yes, I understand we have a question about pricing as well. Siteport does have a pricing framework. However, we prefer to talk to you individually about your particular scenario and then discuss pricing with you so that we can better understand what you need and then provide the appropriate point within our framework. Thanks.
Welcome to GoToWebinar.
Okay, everyone, I'm sorry about that. My GoToMeeting crashed locally. I'm experiencing some issues with my my machine in GoToMeeting. So anyway, as I was saying, I'm on the Templates tab, and Siteport has gone and grabbed all of the templates that are available from the source CMS. You can see this list here essentially matches the list of templates that you'll see over here inside of the OpenText CMS. There's a handful of templates, about 20. You'll see one called Default, Sitemap, News List, Shop, Smart Forms, Teaser, and these are all the ones that you'll see over here in this list. So I select the templates that I want to migrate, and I hit Save. And now if I go back to my dashboard, I can see that I've got a migration configured to connect to the OpenText Website Management CMS, put the content inside of Siteport, and I'm running it right now with 20 templates. So the next thing I do is just hit the play button, and I'm required to log in to the target CMS as well, which in this case is the Sitecore environment. And now the migration is running. All of the events show up over here in the event window. If there's any errors, they show up in this tab over here, and that's useful for debugging. You'll have, when you're going through an actual migration, there will be issues with one template or another, and you will have to try to figure out what those issues are and rerun the migration accordingly. So while that's running, I wanted to go over here and take a look at some of these templates in a little bit more detail. The one that we're going to look at in more depth is the default template, and you can see that the content elements that it has is what the OpenText WSM product calls fields or blocks of content that might be on a page. And you can see that there's a whole bunch of them. The ones that we're going to look at specifically are these two, one called STF sample single line text, which is a single line text field, and then one called TXT sample RTF text, which is a rich text field. And then you can also see that inside of the OpenText CMS, it has the actual template, which is the HTML. And you can see inside here the blocks of text from the OpenText WSM is in yellow. This is how this CMS happens to render content out through the HTML in its templatized system. So what we're looking for Siteport to do is recreate these templates over in the new CMS and bring over all of that HTML. So let's see how this is going. So this is still running, I can see that. And I'm just going to go over here into Sitecore and take a look over here in Sitecore and see what I can see underneath the templates folder. And now I can see that I have these folders created underneath here, along with this default page has been created already, so I can take a look at this default page. Also, the standard fields have been created so that any default text in any of the fields have been generated already inside of the template on the Sitecore side. You can see all of the default text is inside of the content, and then also all of the same fields have been created over in the Sitecore side for this template. Along with these particular fields that we looked at earlier, which now inside of the new CMS they're called sample RTF text and sample single line text field. And what I quickly wanted to mention is what happened there is during the actual migration from the source CMS to the target CMS, those templates were renamed by what's called a transformation. And transformations can be run on any type of content within the source CMS to the target CMS while it's in transit to do any kind of thing that you would want to do. And we have more examples on our YouTube channel of what you might use transformations for. But in this case, we've created a transformation for this particular migration from OpenText WSM to Sitecore to change some naming conventions so that they follow Sitecore best practices. And that's a good example of what you might want to create transformations for. Other examples are you want to strip out some particular bits of code that are embedded inside of your template or change them into some other things. And we've got transformations that do basic things like, inside of a Drupal source, we can translate PHP code if it's a simple if conditions or a simple looping constructs, translate that into Sitecore, what would be C# for loops and C# if conditions. So those are kind of the things that you might use transformations for to change some of your display logic inside of your template. So the next thing I wanted to show you is just quickly go over here inside the Development Center and take a look at the actual layout that got generated by Siteport as it got moved from the source to the target. So I'm going to open up the default layout that got created. And we're going to take a look at the HTML that got created. This is essentially the exact same HTML that you saw before inside the OpenText system, except it changed all of those yellow values that were how the OpenText system renders content. It changed it into the way that Sitecore renders content. So in this case, it's an SC text for a single-line text field. In the OpenText system, the way that you create nested content is through something called containers, and that translates into placeholders inside of Sitecore. And also, you'll see SC links and SC text fields. So all of these are rendered in standard Sitecore fields code so that you can take advantage of all of the native Sitecore functionality. So the idea is that we're not taking away anything that you would have native with Sitecore. You would still be using the inline editing to edit these fields because we're using all of the regular Sitecore tags. Okay, so now that we've got these templates migrated, I'm going to go back to Siteport and create a new migration. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to go over here, click on the plus sign to create a new migration. And this one is going to be a content migration. So I can go over here and I see I have two migrations created in this Siteport installation. I'm going to view the content migration. And I need to do the same thing as I did before, set up the source and the target. Same as I did last time. I'm going to use the same project I used before. And the same target project that I used before. And now instead of going down to the template tab, I'm going to go to the content tab. So this content tab is where you configure migrations for doing your content. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a particular page to migrate today for the demonstration called the community page. What you see up here is this node structure matches the exact same node structure that you see inside of the source CMS. And the source CMS has the node structure that is listed here. You can see home, LST navigation, and then the community page and all of these pages underneath it. And over here, this matches the same thing. You could choose to select the home page and migrate everything under the home, or you could migrate community and everything under community, or news and everything under news. And you could have multiple migrations, one that does the community section of the site, one that does the news section of the site. And you might have one developer working on one section while you have another developer working on another section. So now I'm going to go down to the types of content that I'm going to migrate, and in this case I'm going to select everything. It's possible that you might want to only select one or the other if you're doing a migration and you're experiencing a particular issue with some some image links or some dependent child modules, which are the right rail components that would get migrated over. If you're experiencing some issue, you might want to try to isolate that issue by only doing one particular portion of the migration while not doing the other part. And that's sort of how you would go through the process of migrating. Here I have 2 languages set up in this. Siteport recognizes that there's 2 languages set up in the source CMS, so I'm going to migrate both of those languages. And then the target location, what this is going to do is it's going to show me the tree structure that was found inside of Siteport underneath the content node. So over here now I see the content node and I see home and data store, and there's nothing underneath home and data store. And using this structure, you could do something like migrate the community node first and all of its children, and then create another migration after that that migrates the news node, and then migrates that into the previously migrated community node. So you can take whole sections of the tree and move them around during your migration just by how you configure the migration. And this is very useful if you're doing a redesign and you want to change the structure of your website. So now that I've got this test migration set up, I'm going to go over to this dashboard and see that I've got my source and my target configured, and I've got my start node, community, my target node, home, and then I've got all these options set up, and I've got no other content to be migrated, so I'm just going to run the migration. And it runs over here. You can see some of the output over here as it's running. And all this output is also inside of log files, so if you needed an audit trail of what actually got migrated and what it got migrated to, that's all in the log file. So while that's running, I'm going to go over to the source CMS so that we can take a look at this page, and I can show you a little bit more details about it so that we can see how it got migrated over to the target system. So this little button here is how you tell what template this page is based on. As you can see, it's based on the page's default template that we had seen previously, that we previously migrated. And you can see that it has a number of pieces of content in it. I'm in the German language, so you can see that there is some German text inside of these 2 fields. And I can go over to the English version and see that there is some English text inside of these other 2 fields. Whoops, sorry. Community page. So we can see there's some English text inside it. And we can also see that inside of this one, what's called a container or a subcomponent, there's a page called Inner Community. And inside that one, it has some English language inside of English content inside of that child module, and same inside of the German version. There's that same child module exists. With some German text inside of it. So now let's go back and check our migration and see how it's going. I can see it's still running, but I can go over here, and I think some of the content has gotten migrated already. So if I look inside this community page, it got migrated underneath the home page as I expected, and it has all of these child modules, such as Inner Community. There was a handful of other child modules as well, got migrated under Data Store. Where it puts these child modules is configurable. Right now I have this one set up so it just puts them all inside of Data Store, but they could be put underneath the community page itself, or they could be put in a separate section if you want. That's configurable. So if we look inside of the content inside of Siteport, you see all of the content got created over here. And if we go down all the way down the bottom, we see these 2 fields that have the English content that got created inside of it. Just quickly open up the rich text editor, and you see that the English content is actually in the field that we expected it to be in. And also now if I go down and check the German version that got created, and the German version has the German content down inside of the fields that I expected it to be in as well. And also the Inner Community page got created, and it has the German content inside of this field and also the English content inside of that same field inside in the English language. And also you can see quickly that the template that it's based on is that default template that we had created previously using Siteport. So you can see that you're not actually, you're using the power of the API for so that Siteport is aware which template a piece of content needs to be migrated into, because it can connect directly to the source and ask the source system, okay, I need to migrate this community page, what template is it based on, and then make sure that I generate a content item based on the same template inside of the target system as well. Okay, so now I'm going to go back over here to Siteport, and I'm going to go back to this content migration field, content migration that I've configured, and I'm going to create what is called a template map, just to give you a quick idea of how you can use Siteport for the second scenario that Vicki talked about to do a redesign at the same time. So if you click on this Template Mappers tab, what you see is a list of template map files. Right now there's none, so I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to create it and call it Up and Away Template Map. And there's no mapping, so I'm going to create a mapping. And what this mapping does is it lets me choose a default a template to migrate from, and then the template that I want to migrate to. So in this scenario, what you would have done is you would have created your templates inside of the new CMS, and then you would have told Siteport, any piece of content that is based on the default template, I now want you to create inside of the target system a template, a new content item based on the new simple template, which was that template that I showed you before we got started in here. And then you need to map the field. So using the template mapper functionality, you map field by field where you want the content to go. And Siteport is aware of what the content types are. That so if it's a single line text field in the source, it should be a single line text field in the target. Now for this demo, I'm just going to map these two fields. I'm going to map this STF, the single line text field in the source, to the target single line text field that I've generated. And same thing with this rich text field over here. So now I've got a really simple template map just for one template. I haven't defined a map for the other templates, just this one template. So I'm going to go back to this migration, and I'm going to click on this template mapper tab here and tell Siteport that I want it to use this template map that I just generated, the Up and Away template map. And before I click play, I'm going to go back over here to Siteport and delete this community page so that we make sure that it gets recreated when we run the migration again. And actually, I will also, I'm just going to run the migration right now. I've already logged in the source and the target, so it starts to run right away. Okay, so now I believe that it migrates the community page first, so I'm just going to go over here and see if I can see that community page. This is the last thing that I wanted to show you. So now this community page has been generated. You can see that it's based on this new simple template that we specified, and we can see that the content got put into the right fields in both the English version. The German version hasn't been generated yet. So that content will be there in both the English version and the German version. And this is how you can do a template redesign. Using Siteport, you can migrate template by template and all the templates that you choose not to map. What will happen is Siteport will look for a template that has the same name. So this inner community template, if you did not specify a map for the template called TEXT text, then it would just assume that it would find a template in the target system that had the exact same name. In this case, it was using this template down here underneath the to content folder called text. And we can also see the English version of the content is there now as well. And there you go. That's how you can use Siteport to do content migrations. Of course, I just showed you one really simple for one page and a handful of templates, but we've used this on clients that have customers that have had page sizes of over 10,000 or even as simple as a couple thousand pages and template counts that are over 100 templates. And it makes migrating your content a lot easier, a lot more efficient, and repeatable as well. So you can cut down on the amount of time it takes to do the content migration, and as well as the amount of time it takes that the business needs to have a content freeze. So now I'm going to hand it back to Vicki and Alex to see if we have any questions that we would like to answer.
Thanks, Christian. So I just wanted to emphasize something that Christian just said, and that is that there are many other things that Siteport can do. And we invite you to go to our website at siteport.net or to look at our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Siteport software. We have many videos there that show you varying scenarios of what you can do with Siteport. And of course, you can also email us at info@siteport.net. So things like component migration, custom transformations, template mapping for redesigns, multilingual migration, and also we mentioned that we have various CMS connectors. So I'm going to hand off now to Alex, who said we have quite a few questions, and she's going to get that started for us while in our remaining time. Alex?
Thanks, Vicki. We do have a lot of questions, and I know that we are getting close to the end, so we're going to try to get some of them in, but a lot of them actually are for you, Christian, about Siteport specifically. So one of the questions that came up a lot was, what versions of Sitecore does Siteport support?
The versions that the versions of the software that Siteport supports is dependent on the API. So for some connectors, we've built the connector to connect to a specific version, and for other connectors, it doesn't really matter. In the case of Sitecore, we're using a lot of the item-based API, so it's item retrieval, item creation, and that really hasn't changed in a long time in the Sitecore API. So while we've tested with 6.4, 6.5, and 6.6, I expected it to work fine all the way back to 5.5 or maybe even before, because the item API that we're using hasn't changed in a number of years. And I also expect it to work with Sitecore 7, even though we haven't tested it yet with Sitecore 7, because the item API didn't change in Sitecore 7 either.
Thanks, Christian. Another question is sorry, let me get that for you. Will images move to the media library, and will links and GUIDs have to be manually reset with Siteport?
No, that was one of the things that I didn't get to show today. We have a number of videos up on our website that show that working. Essentially, it's all done by Siteport itself. There's nothing that you have to do when it comes to image relinking and page relinking. I think we have a specific video up there called single page migration that shows how one page gets migrated and linked automatically to another page that's already there on the website. So you can view that one. But basically, all that needs to be done is you need to do a bulk import of the images first. Siteport does not migrate the images itself just because it doesn't make sense, because most CMSs have a way to bulk export and bulk import as Siteport does. So you'd have to bulk import the images into the media library first, and then Siteport will go through all of the rich text fields, all the media link fields that are inside of Sitecore after the content gets migrated, and fix them all so that it points to the correct images and the correct pages inside of the media library. So that happens automatically, and that was one of the options when I did the content migration, to say whether you want Siteport to fix the page links or not fix the page links. And you might run a migration where you just have Siteport just fix the page links and media asset links.
Thanks, Christian. I think those are pretty much all of the questions that we have. Some of them are a little bit more specific, and we can get back to you on an individual basis. If you do have other questions, feel free to reach out to us at info@siteport.net, and we will get back to you at those points. So thank you so much for everyone for joining the webinar. Again, if you have any questions, let us know, and visit siteport.net to see more videos and learn more about the software. So thank you again for everyone for joining.